Okay. Hi, everybody. Great to see you here. We're here on the territory of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh people, and I'm here to address the issue that's front of mind, obviously, for so many British Columbians today, the sinking of the Mick barge. It's in tidal waters, so it's federal jurisdiction, but I want to assure British Columbians that I have asked the Prime Minister for some one-on-one time to discuss this critical issue. There are other issues, though, that I know that are front of mind for British Columbians today, so I'll also touch on those. Had a call this morning with the Prime Minister and with premiers across Canada to discuss the announcement by the President of the United States of his intent to impose a 25% tariff on vehicle parts and vehicles crossing into the United States. This is another reckless action by the President that will only increase costs for Americans. The projection that's in the Wall Street Journal today is $10,000 US per vehicle. This will increase costs for Americans. It is hard to imagine that this policy makes sense in terms of a broader strategy laid out by the President to reduce costs for people and to address the threat of industrialization and manufacturing in China. I am glad that the Prime Minister had a positive call with the President, and I'm also skeptical about the long-term of that positive relationship. So I would count myself as a hopeful skeptic, and I urged the Prime Minister to work with our allies around the world. The President is attacking countries everywhere right now. We should be partnering with other countries, with the EU, with the Asia Pacific, with the UK, with New Zealand, with Australia, ensuring that we are working together to respond to this threat to all of our economies and, in fact, to the global democratic order. So I am very hopeful that he will, as best as possible in this campaign period, continue to advance that work. In terms of British Columbia's response to tariffs, we have a bill in front of the Legislative Assembly, Bill 7, which is our tariff response bill. It has a number of components to it. It assists us in eliminating internal trade barriers, in procuring directly from Canadian and British Columbia companies to enable government to prefer buying Canadian, just like British Columbians are doing right now, to put a toll on commercial vehicles passing through British Columbia on their way to Alaska. It enables us to be able to do that. And it also has what I've described as an emergency response authority for the province to be able to respond quickly in the event that the President issues an executive order that targets British Columbia, our economy, our people. This is, I think, a very serious risk and one that we need authorities to respond to. We have emergency response authorities for natural disasters. We do not have emergency response authorities for disasters created by the President of the United States. With that said, I believe very strongly that we need the ability to move quickly, but we've also heard from a number of people, a number of key stakeholders, including our Tariff and Economic Response Committee, Indigenous leaders, trade organizations, their anxieties that we didn't get the balance right, that I didn't get the balance right in terms of the ability to move quickly and necessary safeguards. My commitment from the beginning for British Columbians was that we needed to work together on these things with business, with labor, with industry, with First Nations to respond to the tariff threat. So with that in mind, we'll be pulling Part 4 of Bill 7 to ensure that we get the balance right. My commitment to British Columbians is I will continue to ensure that we have the ability to respond quickly, but if there's a chance for us to retool this and ensure that the safeguards are in place to make people feel comfortable that there's democratic and legislative oversight of these incredibly important provisions, then we will do so. With that said, I'd like to open it up now for questions from the media, and happy to hear from you.
Thank you for joining us today. We have members of the media here in person as well as on the phone line. For those who've called in, please press *1 to enter the queue. That's *1 to ask a question. Please unmute your line. You will only be audible when you're called upon. Media will be limited to one question and one follow-up. We're starting in the room today. Our first question is from Joe Sadowski, City News. Go ahead, Joe.
Thank you, Premier. So are you able to provide a little bit more context in terms of the anxiety that stakeholders are feeling, and what exactly is it? All of Part 4 of Bill 7 that you're taking out, and are you able to elaborate more on the safeguards that people are concerned about, and just emphasize how you're going to get rid of those anxieties?
Okay. We've engaged with our tariff committee, with First Nations leadership, with labor leadership, business leadership, and across the board, people understand the intent of the section, which is to ensure that we're able to respond quickly to executive orders from the president that target our economy. But what they would like to see is increased ability and increased oversight, safeguards in relation to the Legislative Assembly process, which could be reduced timelines for the provisions to be existing, some sort of committee of the Legislative Assembly to have a look at those orders as they're brought in, that there are ways to achieve this quick action, but that also broaden out the discussion within the Legislative Assembly. I'm happy to take it back and ensure that we have that balance right. As much as I would like to be perfect, I am not. And so the goal here is to respond to the fact that I didn't get the balance right on this one, but that we do need this authority. We do need the ability to respond quickly. And we'll work with those key stakeholders that we committed to work with at the beginning of this process to get it right and ensure that they're comfortable with these provisions going forward.
And a quick follow-up. You said you had a call with the Prime Minister and other premiers today. Why aren't other provinces looking to follow Bill 7 and follow suit if this is the right move?
I can't speak for other premiers and the strategies and what they're planning on doing. But I do know that I've seen Ontario respond by increasing charges on hydro to northern U.S. states to respond to threats to their industry. That is the kind of authority that could be enabled by this provision. So we see other provinces doing this, but the question of the legislative grounding for that in terms of British Columbia, it's not there. We don't have that ability to respond quickly. But I also understand that these are really significant authorities, and that in order for people to feel comfortable with government having them, they need to know that there is a corresponding oversight and ability for them to provide that feedback at critical times. So we're going to make sure that that's in place.
Next, we'll go to Sinjin Alexander from CTV. Go ahead.
Good morning, Premier. Let's go to the call if we can. If any details you can give us on the call, how long it was, if everybody was on the call, all the premiers as well. And you mentioned skeptical. You're skeptical about the rapport right now that Mr. Trump has with us. In your own words, what did you mean by that?
So the call was from 9:30 to 10:30 scheduled. We went to about 10:45. It was a good discussion. All premiers had the opportunity to weigh in. We had an update from the Prime Minister and from Dom LeBlanc about their engagements, both with the United States and internationally. It was a very helpful update for us, as well as some of their thinking about steps moving forward. For my part, I shared a number of concerns from British Columbia. One is the impact of retaliatory tariffs on the costs of public infrastructure, highways, bridges, hospitals, and major public projects, as well as my wish that the Prime Minister and his team aggressively pursue international partnerships to fortify our tariff response. So we're all working together. It feels a bit to me like a Bruce Lee movie, where in this case, the president is Bruce Lee, and everyone is attacking individually instead of going in as a group. I think if you're going after the whole world, I think that the world should come together and respond together as much as possible. My skepticism about the president and his intentions are, it varies depending on the time of day. We have seen someone who is not true to his word in terms of the trade agreement he signed with Canada. He's obviously abandoned it, applying tariffs to us on a broad array of fronts in violation of that agreement, an agreement that he negotiated. He varies from being insulting to our country and our sovereignty to being complimentary, depending on the day. And I think that what we're going to see over the next 4 years, and this isn't a great insight, this is common sense to British Columbians and Canadians, is any number of versions of the president. And the only possible response for us is to get out of that cycle, to work internationally, to diversify, to strengthen our national economy, to buy Canadian, to stand on our own 2 feet. And we can't be dependent on whether or not Mr. Trump is in a good mood on any particular day.
Can we talk about Bruce Lee then, if we can, please, Premier? Lots of importance about needing a united front. You've heard that. Do you feel after the call that there is a united front amongst all the premiers?
Yeah, I think one of the strengths of the Team Canada approach has been that each of the premiers comes at it from a different angle. We each have aspects of our economy that could assist in responding to the U.S. and pressuring the U.S. For example, like the toll provisions to Alaska here in British Columbia, the critical minerals that are produced here in British Columbia. And we all have different political connections in the United States. And so I think that really enables us to go at this from a number of different points. And to be frank, I think we've been successful so far. American consumer sentiment is at the lowest level that it has been in a generation. The stock market has wiped off billions of dollars, trillions of dollars in gains as a result of the tariff threat from the president. He has shifted his discussion of how he refers to both the Prime Minister and to our country as recently as today. We see positive indicators that our outreach, our work is having an impact. But we've got to keep going because the president is clear that his intent is to destroy specific industries in our country. In British Columbia, he wants to destroy our softwood industry. In Ontario, he wants to destroy the auto parts sector. He will not stop until he is stopped. And so we have to work together to do that.
And we're going to go to the phones next. We'll start with Rob Shaw from Check News. Go ahead, Rob.
Oh, hey, Premier. Just a couple things here. Is Part 4 dead, or are you going to retool it and bring it back somehow to address these concerns? And can you just sort of walk me through, like, as someone with a background in the Civil Liberties Association and a civil libertarian, how do you think, when you reflect on it, you got the balance wrong here when we're talking about cabinet authority without legislative approval for 2 years and this big sort of civil liberties backlash from someone like yourself who has that background?
Thanks, Rob. So with respect to how the bill is constructed, anytime there is a natural disaster or there's some kind of sudden and unexpected impact on the economy, generally there are authorities that exist within the law for government to be able to respond. When that attack is of an economic form by a foreign government, we simply do not have those authorities. It was the intent of the bill to be able to respond to that, and it's an authority that I think we need to be able to respond quickly. There's a president that can act by executive order to harm us very quickly, and we do need to be able to respond quickly. So my intent is to take the bill away, to work with key stakeholders, find a version that addresses the safeguards that they would like to see, the engagement that they would like to see, but still addresses that ability to move very quickly to protect British Columbians, because that's our goal, to protect British Columbians and Canadians. And I'll say just broadly, my interest in being able to move quickly to respond to the threat that British Columbia is facing got the better of certainly my understanding that the safeguards that people are calling for need to be there as well. So I'll make sure that we're addressing those safeguards, that we're finding a way to achieve all of these goals if that's possible, and bring the bill back as a separate bill for the Legislative Assembly.
Rob, do you have a follow-up?
Sure, thanks. Could you tell us a little bit about when you realized you were going to have to make this move? I know, like 10 minutes after the bill came out, there was already suggestions about this. We asked you about it in a press conference. You had that meeting of your tariff committee, I think last Tuesday, where they said they had concerns about it. You have former premiers coming out in the last couple of days. Was there a certain point with a certain group or a certain voice that convinced you were going to have to back down on this bill? And when did you come to that realization?
Yeah, the Attorney General and her team have been engaging with a number of key stakeholders on this, which includes our tariff committee, among others. And my commitment from the beginning to British Columbians was that we needed, if we were going to be successful in this tariff fight, if we are going to be successful, we all need to work together. We need the business community, we need labor, First Nations leadership, we need all British Columbians on side. The level of anxiety and concern that I was hearing from key stakeholders was pretty clear through the Attorney General and her team. It was pretty clear to me that we needed to have another look at that and that's what we're going to do.
Next, we'll go to Richard Zussman from Global News. Go ahead, Richard.
Obviously the first opportunity we've had to speak to you since the federal election started. You had an opportunity to speak with the Prime Minister today. Do you believe that we need consistency here and that Canadians would be best served if the Liberals win this election to provide stability through these threats of tariffs from the United States?
Well, Richard, there's no question. I'm sure it's obvious to British Columbians and to all Canadians that instability at the federal level during this critical time has been a problem. It's been a huge challenge for us as a country to respond to this threat. I will say that the leadership federally in the circumstances has done the best they can, but the circumstances are not good. I want this election behind us as quickly as possible. I want a Prime Minister sworn in. I want stability at the federal level. I'm on Team Orange, and I'm on Team NDP, but that stability is absolutely crucial for the country going forward. And you can hear it even in the agreement that the Prime Minister struck over the phone for what that's worth with this president. That there's going to be conversations about and negotiations about the entire trade package going forward with the United States as soon as the federal election is done. So it's cost us. It's been a challenge, but the good news is, to my mind, is we do see a light at the end of the tunnel. We are getting to the end of the tunnel. We're going to have a Prime Minister sworn in. Parliament will be sitting, and that will remove a hand that's been tied behind our back for too long.
Richard, do you have a follow-up?
Yeah, our parliamentary system can lead to some complicated results. Are you encouraging British Columbians to vote New Democrat in this federal election? And by doing so, do you have any concern that that could lead to vote splitting and produce a conservative government? What is your message to New Democrats out there, centrist voters who supported you in the last election, progressive voters who are trying to figure out what the best option for this country and this province is in this federal election?
Well, Richard, I have total confidence in Canadians and British Columbians to vote and ensure that they're supporting representatives, regardless of party, that are going to advance the interests of their community, of their provinces, and of the country as a whole. People know what color jersey I'm wearing, but it doesn't matter the color of the jersey right now for Canadians. It's got a maple leaf on the front of it. And we're all fighting together as Team Canada. I'm working with premiers from all different parties across the table right now, and sure want to keep that unified Team Canada approach at the table. So I'm going to do my best to support good governance outcomes for Canadians out of the federal election and stay focused on working together as a country.
Next, we'll go to Vaughn Palmer from the Vancouver Sun. Go ahead, Vaughn.
Good day, Premier. On the 13th of March, you told us in a news conference that cabinet orders passed under Bill 7 would be subject to ratification by the legislature. When you said that, were you aware that there is, in fact, no clause in the bill that says that or requires it?
Well, Vaughn, in order for any provision passed under the Part 4, which we will be pulling in order to retool it, in order for any provision under that section to continue, it would have to come to the legislature. And I understand the objection that the 24-month horizon was too long for people. It's a legitimate concern that's been raised, and it's one that we're looking at addressing in terms of other safeguards we can put in place. In addition, every provision that was brought forward had to come out and be reported to the legislature. There'd be transparency around it. I understand that that was not considered to be sufficient for key stakeholders. So we're going to take this bill back and make sure that we have provisions in place that people feel and understand that there'll be oversight of these provisions while ensuring at the same time that we're able to act quickly to respond to an economic attack from the president that I entirely expect, because it's what he's been doing since he's been elected, and it's only been a few months, and we got 4 years to go.
Vaughn, do you have a follow-up question?
Yeah, you said ratification 3 times, and it's not there. It sounds to me like you hadn't read your own bill.
Well, Vaughn, that's not true. and it's not correct. Every provision that would be passed in order to become law in British Columbia to continue would need to be passed by the Legislative Assembly within 24 months. And I understand the objection that that is too long, but it is not correct to say that it wouldn't have to be ratified by the Legislative Assembly.
Next, we'll go to Katie DeRosa from CBC. Go ahead, Katie.
Premier, some of the critics, included this week former Premier Gordon Campbell, who said he found it ironic that in responding to President Donald Trump, who some have said has an autocratic approach, you yourself were taking an autocratic approach and suspending democracy. How do you respond to those types of concerns?
Well, my longtime friend and supporter, Gordon Campbell, had some opinions. I understand that. But while I joke about that, I do take it seriously. When former head of the province, Jeff Plant, I think, who's frankly been a broker on both sides, raising concerns. But far from just those voices, my commitment was with the business community, with labor, with Indigenous leadership, that we all needed to work together to respond to the tariff threat. They raised some very serious concerns with me, which is why we're going to take it back. We're going to retool it, ensure those safeguards are in place, and that we're also able to respond to protect British Columbian families from the threats presented by this president.
Katie, do you have a follow-up?
How soon will you expect the other portions of the bill, interprovincial trade, to be, put through the legislature? Since many businesses are saying that is the key part that they want to see expedited.
Our goal is to get it through the Legislative Assembly as quickly as possible. Of course, all the parties will have the opportunity to interrogate the bill. It'll go to committee stage and so on. So I can't predict how long that process will take. But it is our commitment to pass this bill before the end of the session.
Next, we'll go to Justine Hunter from Global News. Go ahead. Global Mail, sorry.
Global News, something like that, Global Mail. Hi, Premier. So I just want to clarify, first of all, so Bill 7 goes ahead without Section 4. Then you want to bring a bill in that will embrace the principles of Section 4. What is the timeline for that? Are you hoping to get that in quickly before the session ends?
We'll take the time that's needed with our key stakeholders to be able to do this work. It's unlikely that we'll be able to introduce anything before the end of the session. We already have quite a full legislative agenda, but I do think it's quite an urgent need that the province has to be able to respond quickly to threats presented to BC families by the president. So we'll be working as quickly as we can with our stakeholders while ensuring that they have a chance to have their voices heard in the process.
Justine, do you have a follow-up question?
Yeah, thanks. You suggested, you mused about this idea of a legislative committee that might provide oversight when the House isn't sitting. Is there any precedent for that?
I don't know if you're in the press club, Justine, but maybe Yvonne Palmer would know. I suspect I can't think of any examples that have come to mind, but that's a suggestion that's been advanced to us, and it's something that we're willing to consider. The goal here is ensuring that we're able to respond quickly, and that there is comfort, that there's oversight and opportunities for feedback, as I understand the concerns that have been raised.
Next, we'll go to Wolf Deppner from Black Press. Go ahead, Wolf.
Yeah, hi, good morning. Thank you for taking my question. I want to follow up on Justine's question. You said that the that the Part 4 section of Bill 7 might not be tabled this session, so that could mean that it won't be tabled until the fall. So that's several months from now. Does that not undermine your own argument that you need to act quickly on the tariff threats? Thank you.
Yeah, well, I don't think it's any secret that I think we need this authority, that I think we need it urgently. But I also recognize my own vulnerability to want to move very quickly to protect BC families and protect our economy, with the need to balance that with legitimate concerns that have been raised by key stakeholders of ours. So I want to move as quickly as possible to get this in place, but I also made a commitment to British Columbians and to these key stakeholders that we would do that together.
Wolf, do you have a follow-up question?
Yes, I do. It sounds like you're trying to square that proverbial circle here a little bit. But since we're dropping Bruce Lee references here, whose fists of fury hurt the most in terms of your opponents regarding Part 4 of Bill 7? Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was very persuasive that there was considerable anxiety around our economic tariff response committee. This is a table that includes Indigenous leadership, business leadership, labor leadership, and it's the reason why we set the table up. There were two main goals for that table. One is for these leaders to bring suggestions to the government. How do we respond quickly? How do we strengthen our economy? How do we diversify our economy? And the second was to provide feedback on government initiatives. This was one that they provided feedback on. It was very persuasive to me that they had serious concerns and that needed to be addressed. So we're ready to take it back for me, and particularly given my commitment to the groups that are sitting around that table who have not worked together before in this way, that we take their voices seriously. And we are listening, and we'll work together.
Next, we'll go to Daryl Greer from the Canadian Press. Go ahead, Daryl.
Yes, thank you. Premier Eby, what was the final nail in the coffin for this particular part of the bill? Was there anything specifically that changed your mind?
So for me, it was critical to hear from our Economic and Tariff Response Committee. The anxieties that were brought forward about the need for increased safeguards and oversight in relation to these provisions that allow us to respond quickly to urgent threats from the United States was certainly very persuasive to me.
Daryl, do you have a follow-up question?
Well, I have many, but with specificity, can you tell us who or what exactly made you make the decision to walk this back?
Sure. I heard concerns from key members of our Tariff Response Committee, including Indigenous leadership, leaders of economic organizations in the province, that I brought together at this table specifically for the purpose of providing this kind of feedback to the government, with the promise to them that we would listen to them if they raised concerns. And that is what we're doing here today.
We have time for one more question. Our final question today goes to Albert Husui from Fairchild TV. Go ahead, Albert.
Yeah, Premier, another question regarding the housing market. Considering the housing market cooling down, will the government consider pausing the hike on speculation and vacancy tax and invite foreign investment?
No, we are not currently looking at removing the provisions of the speculation vacancy tax. This tax in particular discourages people from buying homes and leaving them vacant as investments. One of the risks that we face here in British Columbia, as well as across Canada right now with a low dollar, is that our real estate becomes significantly more affordable for international speculators and investors, and they can outbid British Columbians and Canadians. At this time, certainly, when our dollar is facing considerable pressure, and is likely potentially to go even lower if the president follows through on his continued threats, we need to ensure that we're protecting British Columbians, that they still have the opportunity to get into our real estate market. In terms of investment generally, we're looking for ways, because we know that builders are facing a lot of pressure right now in terms of capital to be able to build pre-sales. The pre-sale market, the old way of marketing condos, for example, has been facing huge pressure, not just here in British Columbia, but across the country for a variety of reasons. Finding ways that home builders can access capital to be able to build homes for British Columbians and Canadians to live in, whether to rent or to buy, is something that we're working on very actively, and we have a pilot project in Vancouver with Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh that creates the possibility of investment vehicles that allow capital to create housing that's more affordable for British Columbians. I'm really excited about that. And there's other pieces that the housing minister is looking at. So on the one hand, we're going to continue to ensure that people are protected from having homes bought and left vacant. On the other, we're going to ensure that home builders are able to continue to build homes to respond to the needs of our population, and especially where we can do so at reduced cost.
Albert, do you have a follow-up?
Premier has already answered. Yeah, no more. Thank you.
That's all the time we have for today. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks, everybody.